Hey guys, tonight we are going to drift together into a soft, ancient landscape where the earliest stories of humanity unfold like quiet ripples across a calm evening lake. In this gentle retelling, we'll wander slowly through fields touched by dawn, old stone paths warmed by timeless sunlight, and the faint echoes of lives lived in a world that moved at the pace of breath and wind. Nothing here will rush you. Everything is meant to wrap around you like a soft blanket. So settle in, breathe deeply, and let the story of the first family gently surround you. Honestly, if ancient life had Wi-Fi, you probably would not survive 5 minutes. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And while you settle in, tell me in the comments where you are listening from and what time it is for you right now. Now, dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You step into a quieter age, one in which the world feels young, open, and endlessly spacious. The winds move slowly across untouched plains, shaping the land with a patience that seems older than memory. Human footsteps are still rare, and each one settles into the soil like a gentle signature, a small reminder that someone once passed this way. You inhale the faint fragrance of ancient earth, dry, warm, and steady, and imagine every grain drifting through centuries before coming to rest beneath your feet. Time feels layered, almost visible, as if the landscape carries its own quiet archive of early days. You walk without hurry, guided by an atmosphere that seems to encourage calm breathing and unhurried thought. Even the light feels softer, as though the universe itself began on a default setting of peace, inviting you to linger, observe, and simply exist. In this early world, serenity is not rare. It is the natural state of things. You walk along a stretch of land where the first faint marks of community begin to appear, scattered like tiny notes in the earliest chapters of human history. You see simple tools, smooth stones arranged with quiet purpose, and shelters that seem to grow naturally out of the landscape. You feel as though people lived so gently that even the soil welcomed them. You picture someone from that age trying to understand modern traffic, and laughing softly at the idea of rushing anywhere at all. You drift farther, letting your steps settle into the rhythm of this early world, and you sense how these first communities shaped what would later become entire civilizations. This is the moment when history feels like a soft hum instead of a loud declaration. You imagine voices carried over warm breezes, sharing stories around small fires, each flame reflecting the beginning of culture. You feel comfort in how steadily life moved, and you joke to yourself that even the sun probably rose a little slower back then just to match the vibe. You remember that the story of Cain and Abel is among the oldest narratives written in the biblical tradition, preserved through centuries of retelling. You'll let that history rest gently in your mind, not as a heavy lesson, but as a quiet echo of humanity's earliest attempts to understand itself. These stories flow like water through time, changing shape but keeping their essence. You feel the weight of their age, yet their presence feels strangely soothing, like a familiar melody hummed across generations. You picture an ancient scribe trying to keep a straight face while carving symbols, wishing the clay tablets were at least as convenient as sticky notes. You notice something quietly intriguing in the scattered remnants of early inscriptions. Across broken stones and faint carvings, ancient storytellers seem unable to agree on where Cain and Abel once lived. Some inscriptions suggest lush fertile valleys full of early crops. Others describe wide, open plains stretching so far that the horizon feels like a soft blur. A few accounts point to places no modern map can confirm, landscapes that hover somewhere between history and imagination. This gentle ambiguity feels almost comforting, as if the uncertainty itself encourages you to breathe more slowly and sink deeper into the softness of the story. You smile at the realization that even thousands of years ago, humans were already disagreeing about directions, each carving offering its own confident but conflicting version of the world. Suddenly, your own struggles with GPs make perfect sense. If entire civilizations couldn't pinpoint a location, then misreading a turn-by-turn instruction feels like a very ancient, very human tradition. Some historians still debate whether the early family setting was symbolic or literal, shaping the meaning of the narrative in thoughtful and reflective ways. You let that uncertainty drift around you like a light mist, adding texture but never tension. You sense the quiet strength of stories that endure not because they mark precise locations, but because they touch universal human moments. Their survival feels like proof that meaning often outlives geography. As you listen, the slow rhythm of ancient time drapes itself around you, settling over your thoughts like a warm blanket and easing everything into a soft, steady calm. You breathe a little deeper, letting that gentleness linger. Then a small laugh escapes you as you picture a weary historian trying to unpack layers of symbolism for someone who simply wanted to know what was for dinner. It is a reminder that human priorities haven't really changed, just the ways we talk about them. You continue your slow walk through this peaceful landscape, sensing how the early world opens itself gently, inviting you to step fully into its stillness. Each breeze feels like a memory, and each shift of sunlight feels like an old story brushing against your skin. You breathe in the serenity of a world shaped by patient rhythms, and you drift forward without hurry, feeling the quiet earth steady beneath your steps. Each moment unfolds gently, as if the land itself supports you, encouraging you to move softly, peacefully, and entirely without urgency in this ancient light. You step into an age when the earth feels gently unfinished, as if it is still stretching after a long cosmic rest. A soft warmth hangs in the air, not harsh, but the kind that wraps ancient mornings in a mild golden glow. You walk across a landscape shaped long before roads or cities, long before anyone worried about deadlines or passwords. The world moves slowly, and you find yourself matching its pace, drifting with a breeze that seems to wander without purpose and makes you feel pleasantly, peacefully unproductive. You follow the faint curve of the ancient Euphrates River, whose earliest banks once nurtured humanity's first settlements. Tall grasses brush your legs, catching glimmers of sun as they sway in easy rhythms. The land feels generous, draped in lush vegetation, dotted with shrubs, early fruit plants, and wildflowers determined to brighten the dawn. You smile, imagining prehistoric blossoms quietly judging humans for taking ages to invent pots. You walk slowly along the river's edge, where the soil feels cool beneath your feet. The ancient world is quiet, but not empty. It hums with the low rhythm of life, just beginning to understand itself. You hear distant chirps, rustling grasses, and the soft push of water shifting against the riverbank. These gentle sounds weave together like the first soundtrack of the planet, calm enough to lull even the most stressed-out modern mind into a deep sigh. You imagine ancient fish gliding under the surface, thinking the same thing fish think today. Absolutely nothing, which is kind of admirable. You wander through the early landscape and quickly understand why Mesopotamia became the cradle of agriculture. The land feels naturally generous, fertile soil, mild weather, steady water, and effortless invitation for early humans to stop roaming. You imagine families staring at wild grains and thinking, what if we just stayed? One of history's most relatable ideas. That simple choice shaped settlements, traditions, and, inevitably, the first neighbor who borrowed tools and never returned them. You continue along the river and sense how profoundly this land shaped humanity. As early people settled along the Euphrates, they began to build the first small communities that eventually blossomed into villages and cities. The earliest farmers learned how to shape the soil with their hands, coaxing life from the earth, while others crafted tools or tended small animals. You appreciate how these small acts of daily labor laid the groundwork for civilizations, and you find yourself oddly comforted by the thought that humans have always been trying their best. If their best sometimes involved accidentally inventing mud bricks that collapsed during the first rainstorm. As you walk, you notice something curious beneath the surface of the soil. Archaeologists have found layers of unusual silt in this region, the kinds of deposits that do not fully align with normal river flooding. These strange sediments puzzle geologists even today, suggesting rare events or unexplained environmental patterns from thousands of years ago. You picture a group of scientists standing around scratching their heads, trying to figure out what happened, while the ancient earth simply shrugs in geological mystery. You enjoy the thought that even the ground itself likes keeping a few secrets, just to make sure modern humans do not get too confident. You wander deeper along the Euphrates, noticing how the river bends in wide, easy loops, as if it prefers to take the scenic route. The gentle curves of the land encourage you to slow your steps, breathe a little deeper, and let the world unfold without hurry. The early earth feels like a place where time does not race forward. Instead, it drifts like a feather floating on still water. You chuckle at the idea that if the ancient Earth had a calendar, it would probably forget to turn the page for decades. You glance across a wide stretch of open land where distant hills rise like soft silhouettes. Their slopes are covered with low shrubs and early trees that look delicate but deeply rooted, shaped by centuries of calm weather. You imagine small animals scurrying across these hillsides, unaware that one day this very region would anchor countless stories, beliefs, and traditions. You find it funny that these creatures, blissfully simple in their routines, probably had no idea they were living in what would one day be considered prime historical real estate. You continue walking until you reach a shallow rise overlooking the river. From this small height, the world seems to expand endlessly, filled with soft greens, warm browns, and distant shades of blue blending into the horizon. You feel a peaceful depth settle in your chest, as if the landscape itself is encouraging you to slow your thoughts. You notice how the river looks almost like a long ribbon laid gently across the earth, shimmering in the early light. The serenity is so complete that for a moment you wonder how anyone ever found the energy to invent drama. You follow a small path worn into the ground by countless ancient footsteps. These early trails formed naturally over time as people moved between water sources, patches of vegetation, and temporary shelters. You imagine early families walking slowly with baskets of gathered plants, talking softly, or simply enjoying the quiet presence of one another. You find it sweetly reassuring that family life, even then, likely included someone telling the same story for the 10th time while everyone else nodded politely. You descend toward the riverbank and feel a gentle shift in the air, as if the ancient world is guiding you toward another thread in its early tapestry. The landscape softens, the sounds grow quieter, and the light warms, slowing your steps into the calm rhythm of a time before urgency or noise. Ahead lies a small clearing filled with a quiet sense of belonging. You picture simple shelters woven from reeds, tools arranged neatly beside baskets, and small plots of cultivated earth tended with steady hands. Everything feels peaceful and grounded. You breathe deeply and move closer, ready to enter the daily life of the first family, a place where the story of two brothers will unfold with slow, effortless graves. You step into a wide expanse of land where the world stretches open in every direction, soft and unhurried. The fields around you appear almost endless, painted in shades of warm earth and gentle green. Each blade of early grain sways in a rhythm so slow that you feel your own breath begin to match it. The air is mild, carrying the faint scent of soil, warmed by patient sunlight, and you sense that this landscape has been waiting quietly for thousands of years just to welcome you. You smile at how peaceful everything feels, especially compared to modern grocery shopping, which somehow always becomes a competitive sport. You walk deeper into the ancient fields, your steps settling on soft soil shaped by humanity's earliest attempts at farming. The land feels calm, carrying the memory of sharpened stones, wooden digging sticks, and the quiet perseverance of those who learned to coax life from the earth. You can't help wondering how they planted anything without online tutorials, an oddly humbling reminder of our search bar dependence. You let your gaze drift across the landscape, noticing how these fields formed the foundation of early human life. Around 10,000 years ago, people in regions like this began the slow transition from gathering food to growing it, a shift that would reshape the world in profound ways. They learned to plant grains, like barley and wheat, tending small patches of land with patience and hope. You picture the early farmers observing sprouts breaking through the earth, probably celebrating as though someone had discovered a new holiday. You cannot help but think that ancient farming required far more optimism than modern houseplants, which somehow wilt even when you look at them kindly. You continue walking and feel how these quiet fields nurtured more than crops. They nurtured the first true sense of community. As people settled to farm, families expanded, routines formed, and daily life found a steady rhythm shaped by sunrise and dusk. You picture ancient workers wiping their brows, sharing laughter, and celebrating small victories, like finally keeping track of a tool. And somehow, it's comforting to imagine that even thousands of years ago, someone was already complaining about early mornings. You kneel briefly and run your fingers through the soil, feeling how rich and dense it is. The earth here once held seeds that fed some of the earliest families on record, nurturing generations as the centuries passed. Beneath layers of time, archaeologists have found ancient barley grains preserved in burial sites, grains that somehow remained intact through the ages. Their longevity puzzles researchers even today, leading to questions about the conditions that kept them so well maintained. You cannot help but imagine ancient farmers proudly insisting that their barley was simply built tougher, long before modern packaging claimed anything similar. You rise slowly and continue moving through the fields, letting the mild winds guide your pace. The landscape shifts gently as you walk, revealing patches where early humans likely tended small gardens or watched over domesticated animals. Around this era, people began to bring animals, like goats and sheep, closer into their daily lives, shaping early forms of domestication. You picture someone thousands of years ago looking at a wild goat and thinking, I bet I can make this work, which might be one of the boldest and funniest leaps of faith in history. You admire their confidence, especially since goats today still seem determined to prove they answer to no one. You take a slow breath and listen to the soft chorus of ancient life around you, rustling plants, distant calls of early animals, and the quiet hum of a world learning its own rhythm. Everything feels grounded and peaceful, shaped by the gentle labor of people who understood the land intimately. You notice how the fields glow under the early sun, each grain reflecting a warmth that settles deep into your chest. You smile at how the world seems to whisper that nothing needs to be rushed, not even the growth of a tiny seed that takes its sweet time. You wander toward a slightly higher ridge where the fields stretch even farther than before. From here, the land rolls out like a soft tapestry, woven with care by the hands of those who lived long before. The scene is so calming that you imagined early farmers lying on the ground after a day's work, staring up at drifting clouds and debating whether they resembled animals or snacks. You chuckle softly at the thought, enjoying how ancient life seems closer, warmer, and more human with each step. You follow a narrow path between rows of early grain, the stalks brushing lightly against your arms. These paths formed naturally as early workers moved between plots of land, creating trails that connected different parts of their world. Walking here feels like walking inside a memory, one preserved not in books or inscriptions, but in the rhythm of the earth itself. You appreciate how each field tells a story, murmuring through the wind, as if the land remembers every hand that once tended it. You imagine the soil whispering ancient secrets, though knowing soil, it would probably leave out the interesting parts just to maintain its air of mystery. You move quietly along the path and sense a deeper pull within the story, something more intimate, taking shape beneath the vast ancient calm. The fields around you shift from a broad landscape into one connected to two figures who will someday define one of the oldest narratives in religious tradition. The early world narrows, guiding your steps toward a particular family whose presence seems to linger even before they appear. You approach the outline of a small homestead, simple, grounded, quietly alive. You can almost feel the steady rhythm of a family working with the land, tending crops, caring for animals, and moving through each day with an understanding of the earth's unhurried language. As the fields ripple gently, two young brothers come into view in your imagination, shaped by these rhythms and early labors. The story of Cain and Abel rests ahead, waiting patiently, moving with the same soft pace as the world that holds it. The path along the ancient waterway always began with a softness that belonged only to early earth. It was not silence, in the strict sense, but a hum of gentle sounds layered so delicately that the world felt half asleep. The faint ripple of water brushing the banks, the whisper of reeds leaning into the breeze, the muted crunch of dry soil settling after a cool night. People of that age had no names for most of what surrounded them. They did not speak of geography, borders, or territories. Yet they understood one truth instinctively: water was a guide. It was direction, memory, nourishment, and the oldest companion of human wandering. The stream appeared in several Sumerian tablets, described sometimes as a divine channel and sometimes as a route used by the earliest groups who moved with the rhythm of season and survival. Whether mythic or practical, the waterway existed long before anyone recorded words onto clay. It curved gently across the land, like a quiet breath of the earth itself. Under the early sun, its surface shimmered with a pale gold that shifted as though telling a slow, unhurried story, but made not from events, but from continuity. Along its banks stretched patches of earth patterned with countless footprints and hoof marks. Ancient nomadic life did not obey the strict cycles of future civilizations. There were no fixed calendars, no settlements built to endure forever. Instead, there was a fluid relationship between people and land. When water rose, They moved. When it receded, they returned. Sumerian texts written millennia later still acknowledge this instinctive migration, noting how early humans traced the edges of rivers and streams for hunting, gathering, and safe passage. Water was not merely a resource, it was orientation, a quiet compass. Archaeology confirms that these movements preceded organized agriculture by thousands of years, long before seeds were purposefully planted or animals trained to obey. Communities walked these watery paths, learning the language of the land, not through instruction but through repetition. And the strangest thing is this: many of those routes still exist. Modern aerial surveys have revealed ancient pathways faint to the untrained eye, but unmistakable when viewed from above, that have survived floods, droughts, empires, and time itself. They wend like the threads of a forgotten tapestry, persistent and almost stubborn, as though the earth has chosen not to erase them. Such paths held more than practicality. They were emotional geographies. Children grew up beside them, watching the adults prepare for seasonal departures, listening to stories about the distant hunting grounds beyond the horizon, learning which plants along the riverbank signaled a coming change of weather. The land, calm and undemanding, offered teaching without urgency. This was a world in which life did not rush. Days were measured in light, movement in shadows, and choices in the slow rise and fall of the river. Walking along the waterway meant absorbing the details that made existence feel anchored. The sharp scent of wet clay, the soft vibration of insects hidden within reeds, the steady pace of animals migrating parallel to human footsteps. Herds of gazelles, flocks of birds, and the occasional solitary goat traced the same path, creating a shared corridor of life where species moved together without need for boundaries. It was not harmony in the poetic sense. Danger still existed, but it was coexistence shaped by necessity. The horizon itself seemed wider in those days, with no structures interrupting the line between sky and land. The world appeared like a single, unbroken space. Even the clouds drifted slowly, as if respecting the unhurried rhythm of the lives below. A traveler could walk for hours with only the sound of water beside them and feel neither solitude nor fear. The presence of the river was enough. It made the path feel alive. Over time, these slow wanderings carved small rituals into daily life. People paused at certain bends of the water to rest, to gather stones worn smooth by centuries, or to wash dust from their hands. They learned which shallow areas allowed safe crossing and which deep pockets held fish during warmer seasons. In the evenings, firelight reflected on the surface in wavering lines, merging with the stars above until land, water, and sky became a single, gentle tapestry of gold and blue. For young children growing beside the river, these rituals became the quiet architecture of becoming. Two brothers in particular grew into this rhythm, their earliest memories tied to the echo of water against stone. The smell of sun-warmed reeds and the sensation of wind tracing their cheeks as they followed their family along the ancient path. They did not yet know the weight their names would one day carry. They did not know that future generations would speak of them with reverence and sorrow. At this moment in time, they were simply boys shaped by the same elements that shaped everything around them. Water, earth, silence, and slow, patient days. Their childhood unfolded without drama, without prophecy, without the tension that later stories would attach to their existence. Here, on this quiet riverbank, they were just two figures woven naturally into the landscape, learning to track animal prints, to understand the moods of weather, to run barefoot across soil still cool from the night. Their growth was not marked by ceremonies, but by small shifts, the lengthening of their strides, the deepening of their voices, the widening arcs of their curiosity. The path by the water carried them through these years, like a guardian. Each season left its imprint on their minds. The spring when fish were plentiful, the summer when the river thinned into calm pools, the autumn when migrating herds filled the plains, and the winter when frost painted delicate patterns across the reeds. These slow seasons wrapped around the brothers' lives, until, almost without notice, childhood softened into early adulthood. And so, the ancient river, calm and unwavering, bore witness to their quiet growth. The gentle wanderers had become young men shaped not by drama or destiny, but by the steady companionship of the land, the soft rhythms of early paths, and the enduring calm of a world that moved at its own unhurried pace. You step into a quiet clearing, where soft morning light filters through the leaves, casting gentle patterns on the ground. The air carries faint scents of crushed herbs, grains, and smoke from carefully tended fires. At the center stands a modest stone altar, worn smooth by countless touches yet still bearing its natural roughness. Thin wisps of incense curl upward, twisting gently with the breeze. Every motion unfolds slowly and deliberately. Hands place seeds, fruits, and small offerings with quiet reverence. There is no rush. Each gesture carries meaning, like a brushstroke in the patient, meditative rhythm of this ancient ritual. And presented gifts to deities, spirits, or ancestors. These acts connected humans with the natural and supernatural worlds, reinforcing bonds of gratitude, reverence, and continuity. Some offerings were simple, grains laid upon stone or wood, fruits or herbs carefully placed in patterned arrangements. Others involved fire, transforming humble materials into rising smoke, a physical sign of devotion reaching upward beyond immediate sight. Observing these gestures, you sense a meditative rhythm, a repetition of hands moving, flames flickering, and incense curling that mirrors the cycles of day and night, planting and harvest. Curiously, some ancient stone altars show evidence of fire exposure but remain remarkably intact. Archaeologists examining these sites have found charred surfaces on ritual tables or small scorched areas around offerings. Yet the stones themselves show little sign of structural damage. It is as if the materials chosen, volcanic rock, dense limestone, or bacat clay, were selected with care not only for their symbolic weight but also for their endurance. The flames may have danced, the smoke may have thickened and dispersed, but the altar persisted, a steadfast witness to devotion across centuries. You imagine early worshippers carefully lighting small fires, letting the smoke rise in lazy spirals, perhaps whispering prayers or thoughts as the day passed. Or were they practical acts, embedded with utility, ensuring protection, promoting fertility of the soil, or marking seasonal cycles? Perhaps the answer lies in the quiet ambiguity of ritual itself. Gestures that can be both symbolic and practical, a merging of mind, body, and environment into one seamless expression of life's continuity. You sense this duality as you watch, realizing that each seed placed, each wisp of smoke released, bridges the mundane and the sacred. There is a rhythm to preparation that requires patience and attention. Early humans collected materials deliberately, grains chosen for ripeness, herbs selected for fragrance, stones gathered for stability. The altar becomes a stage for these simple acts, and the practitioner's hands, moving methodically, convey a silent understanding of proportion, balance, and timing. Even the act of tending the fire is deliberate. The ember coaxed into flame, the smoke guided upward. A choreography performed slowly and thoughtfully. You notice how these motions reflect broader patterns in early life. Planting, watering, harvesting, tending animals, all acts requiring observation, care, and patience. In a sense, offering is another form of labor, yet infused with intention beyond mere sustenance. As the incense rises, its path traced against the soft morning sky, you see how the act of giving transforms the environment. Tiny clouds of smoke swirl lazily around stone pillars and small figures, creating a living space where the human, the material, and the spiritual converge. Each element participates in the quiet ceremony, contributing to a sense of harmony that feels as old as the land itself. You imagine that even thousands of years ago, a child might have watched these preparations, wide-eyed, and absorbing the subtle lesson that patience, care, and mindfulness are forms of devotion in themselves. The altar, The offerings and the smoke together form a kind of temporal bridge. The rhythm is gentle, neither demanding nor forceful, yet it carries authority, the authority of time, of repeated practice, of shared human attention. You feel drawn into this pattern, moving hands slowly to adjust a stone, lift a sprig of herb, or let a wisp of smoke curl in the air, participating in a rhythm that is profoundly human and remarkably enduring. You notice the subtle humor in everyday details. 2. A seed spilling from a hand, a gust of wind scattering ashes slightly off course, a small animal cautiously inspecting the offerings. In observing the entire process, you perceive a lesson that transcends time. Offering is not about haste or performance. It is about alignment, awareness, and presence. The gentle rhythm of arranging, lighting, and presenting reflects a philosophy implicit in early human life. That engagement, attention, and patience create continuity, connection, and meaning. Every movement resonates. Every gesture leaves an imprint, and every wisp of smoke traces a line between the human and the world around it. By the time the final pieces are placed and the smoke drifts fully upward, the scene rests in a state of quiet completion. The offerings have been made, the fire has been tended, and the ritual stands as a testament to a deliberate, mindful interaction with the land, the material, and the unseen. Here, you feel the subtle heartbeat of early civilizations, a measured, caring, and patient rhythm that shapes not only devotion, and as you step back, the gentle aroma of smoke lingers, a reminder that even the simplest gestures can endure, echoing across time in soft, persistent waves. You step softly into a space that feels suspended between memory and time, where the air is fragrant with hints of ancient flora, even though much of it exists only in stories. These are the gardens of legend, whispered across generations, carried in Sumerian hymns, Babylonian epics, and Assyrian tablets. You can almost see the lush greenery stretching into the distance, framed by the gentle light of an eternal dawn, where the land curves in soft rizzes and pools of water shimmer like mirrors. You inhale the scent of earth and vegetation as if the garden itself is breathing around you, inviting calm and reflection. You might even smile at the thought that these gardens are probably the first Instagram influencers of the ancient world, except their audience was entirely silent. The gardens of old are not confined to one place. They appear in multiple ancient texts, sometimes described as fertile sanctuaries near rivers, sometimes as elevated terraces designed for meditation and connection with unseen forces. Each account paints a slightly different picture. Walls of flowering vines, geometric plots of fragrant herbs, orchards that glow under the sun, and water channels that glint with quiet magic. You can imagine walking slowly between rows of ancient fruit trees, brushing your fingers against leaves whose shapes and textures have been immortalized in ink on clay tablets. Every movement feels measured, as if the garden itself dictates a gentle tempo, slower than your own heartbeat. Throughout human history, these gardens were more than places of beauty. They became symbols of life, learning, and the beginnings of human cultivation. Early civilizations recorded their existence not only in stories, but also in practical observation, noting the cycles of plants, the habits of animals drawn to their shade, and the way sunlight shifted across carefully arranged plots. You can almost see a group of early gardeners marking the days by the blooming of certain flowers, whispering to one another about which trees bear fruit, in which season, while the river nearby murmurs its own quiet encouragement. You might chuckle imagining the first gardener joking to the apprentice, "If you overwater, the plants might complain," a statement timelessly funny to anyone who has ever had a houseplant die despite their best intentions. Yet, as fascinating as these gardens were, not everything in them survived to the present. Some plants mentioned in ancient writings are known only from these texts. Their physical forms vanished long ago. You might picture herbs with fragrances lost to time, trees with fruits that no hand has plucked in centuries, or flowers whose petals appear only in the imagination of those reading the ancient scrolls. There is a gentle melancholy in this thought, but also a sense of wonder that life once flourished in ways now inaccessible, leaving only breath and memory behind. You can smile at the irony that, even in a world with fewer people, some plants were simply better at playing hide-and-seek than humans. You wander deeper into the imagined garden, noticing details that link it to human care. Paths lined with soft moss and worn stone invite quiet contemplation. Small streams split the plots into geometric patterns, reflecting the sky in slow, shivering ripples. You notice birds alighting gently on branches, adding music to the subtle rhythm of leaves brushing against one another. The air tastes faintly of honeyed pollen, wet earth, and sunlight that has traveled across centuries to reach you. Every step in this garden feels like a meditation, a way to breathe not only air, but time itself, inhaling history in small, mindful increments. The garden also carries echoes of human activity. You sense the presence of caretakers long ago. Perhaps a mother tending herbs for medicine, a father guiding a child in planting seeds, or a wandering elder reflecting on the cycles of nature. Each gesture was slow, deliberate, mindful, a dance of patience that shaped the land without imposing urgency. You feel yourself walking alongside them, inhaling the same fragrant breeze, listening to the soft splash of water, and noticing the subtle way the wind moves through leaves. There is humor, even here. Perhaps the earliest gardener thought that talking to plants was practical advice rather than an odd ritual, a tradition quietly preserved in the myths. As you move through the garden, light shifts softly through leaves that exist only in imagination. The plant's shapes echo human, thought-flowing, unpredictable, yet patterned. You sense that early humans spent hours here reflecting, observing nature and themselves, pondering growth, change, and connection. The garden becomes a sanctuary where time slows and the mind wanders freely. You can't help smiling, imagining that some of humanity's first philosophical musings began here, long before books or universities, in quiet conversation with the earth itself. In this environment, the garden's breath becomes intertwined with human thought. Each inhale brings stories of creation, survival, and wonder. Each exhale carries a calm energy that settles into your own body. You can almost hear the quiet laughter of those early humans, as they learn the ways of the garden, noting which seeds sprout fast, which soil yields the richest crops, and how the wind shifts the path of water over time. The rhythm is soft and steady, inviting reflection not on tasks, but on simply being in tune with the land's cycles. You smile, imagining early humans with smartphones, carefully scrolling to record leaves instead of notifications. As you drift deeper, the garden blurs between memory, myth, and imagination. Real plants mingled with legendary growths, and you move among both, sensing a space where early human thought merges with the quiet presence of the earth. Their reflections, when spoken aloud or felt in silence, rise gently in your mind like a soft wind, offering a subtle understanding that life and contemplation are inseparable. The garden teaches patience, mindfulness, and the slow passing of time, free from pressure or expectation. You linger, breathing in the ancient, fragrant air. History, myth, and mystery settle softly around you, like moss beneath your feet. The wind stirs the branches, water ripples gently, and the scent of lost plants whispers forgotten wisdom, drawing your thoughts toward the calm, reflective mind of early humanity. You wander into a quiet workshop of memory, where the first traces of human expression are pressed gently into soft clay. The air is filled with the faint scent of wet earth and the warmth of sunlight that filters through small openings, illuminating tablets in a gentle amber glow. You run your fingers lightly over a series of flattened clay pieces, each one bearing symbols pressed carefully by hands long ago. These were the first attempts to capture thought, to preserve a story, a transaction, or a name. You can almost feel the patience required. Each mark deliberate, each stroke slow, as if the maker were breathing into the clay itself. You smile, thinking that even thousands of years ago, humans probably complained about smudged handwriting, These early clay tablets form the foundation of one of the world's first writing systems. Around 3200 BCE, people in Sumer pressed wedge-shaped marks into soft clay, creating a language both practical and poetic. Some of the earliest tablets record mundane accounts, grain inventories, trade lists, or notes about the weather, while others preserve prayers and myths that echo across millennia. You trace a simple wedge with your finger, marveling that this small impression could carry meaning so far into the future. It is fascinating to imagine someone noting, "Today we collected barley," never realizing that their words would travel through thousands of years to reach minds like yours. You notice, however, that not all symbols are fully understood. Some signs remain mysterious, their meanings lost to time. Scholars have puzzled over certain sequences, guessing at purposes or sounds, yet no one can claim certainty. You feel the thrill of this uncertainty as you gaze over the rows of faint impressions. There is a quiet joy in knowing that even a civilization so advanced for its era still left puzzles behind. Little reminders that not everything can be fully explained. You chuckle softly, imagining a Sumerian scribe shrugging at a tablet and muttering, "Good luck deciphering this one." A note preserved unintentionally for curious minds millennia later. The clay itself holds stories beyond the symbols. Some tablets are slightly warped by the sun. Others bear the delicate impressions of hands pressing deeply or lightly, depending on the maker's mood that day. You sense the intimacy in these marks. Subtle rhythm of human intention captured in a medium that, though lasting, remains soft to the touch. It reminds you that even the oldest records were once fragile, shaped by lives as ordinary and attentive as your own. As you wander among the rows of tablets, some depict daily life, mythology, or moral lessons. Early accounts of families emerges, sometimes just names or relationships, sometimes brief tales of brothers, labor, or offerings. You feel a quiet connection between these writings and the two brothers you have been following, sensing how the clay preserves not only commerce and ritual, but the humanity of early communities, their hopes, tensions, and simple gestures that wove the gentle rhythm of life. As you move forward, you imagine the brothers walking near a small clay workshop, pausing to watch an elder press symbols into a tablet. The moment feels ordinary yet extraordinary, a quiet connection between work and learning, between the practical needs of life and the desire to leave a mark. One brother leans in, tracing the wedge-shaped impressions with his finger, while the other observes in stillness, absorbing the calm rhythm of creation. You can't help smiling, imagining that even the first apprentices probably grumbled about keeping the marks neat. The sun shifts gently, casting long, soft shadows over the clay surface. You breathe in the warmth and feel time slow around you. The brothers continue their lives with steady care, tending animals, cultivating fields, and observing nature's small wonders. Birds hopping along the riverbank, the scent of freshly turned soil, and dew glimmering on early grains. Their world is simple, yet rich, shaped by the soft pulse of the river, the rhythms of the land, and the quiet imprint of human intention. You imagine the brothers observing the tablets not just as records, but as stories of their world, ancestors, and neighbors. Each wedge mark is a whisper across time, capturing small moments that could otherwise be forgotten. You can sense how this gentle recording of life mirrors their own experiences. Patience, attention, and a steady engagement with the earth and each other. Their days pass unhurried, marked by the turning of the sun, the work in fields, and the care of flocks, all accompanied by the soft knowledge that their lives are part of a larger continuum, one that the clay preserves in a subtle, enduring rhythm. You feel the quiet intimacy of human life in every detail. The brothers' footsteps are measured, unhurried. Their hands are steady, whether tending plants, moving stones, or lifting tools. The clay tablets, with their wedge-shaped impressions, echo that same patience. Even the undeciphered symbols seem to convey a sense of reflection, a meditation on existence captured in a medium both solid and soft. You imagine the first scribe observing a family walking past, smiling quietly, perhaps noting that the world seems to unfold best when neither rush nor worry intrudes. As you linger among the tablets, you notice the calm continuity in small daily actions, making symbols, tending crops, caring for animals, watching rivers. Everything unfolds at the gentle pace of patience and quiet observation. Around the workshop, the soft hum of light footsteps. Distant water, rustling leaves forms a subtle symphony. In this stillness, the brothers' presence feels deeply entwined with the land, the river, and the history pressed into clay. Their lives are ordinary yet timeless, simple yet profoundly connected to the world surrounding them. The day drifts gently, like a river bending through soft light, and you follow its pace. The clay, the brothers, the land, and the air teach a quiet lesson. Even the smallest, carefully made impressions can endure far beyond a single lifetime. You walk slowly out of the workshop, feeling the gentle heartbeat of early civilization under your feet, carrying with you the serenity of two young lives and the enduring traces left in early clay. Your eyes are the first light, walking into the soft glow of a landscape where dew clings to every blade of grass. The air carries the faint scent of earth and animal, warm with the promise of a new day. In the distance, you see flocks moving slowly, guided by hands that know each animal intimately. This is the realm of Abel, where tending flocks is both work and meditation. You step lightly along the pasture, noticing the rhythm of hooves against soft soil, the gentle lowing of young sheep, and the occasional rustle of leaves stirred by a breeze that seems almost conspiratorial. You might chuckle, quietly imagining a lamb attempting to mimic a human yawn, as if it understands the morning as a shared experience. Shepherding in these early times was as much about presence as about practicality. Abel and others like him were caretakers of life, watching over the animals as the sun crests the horizon. Each step is deliberate, each glance careful, reflecting a bond that is both utilitarian and quietly affectionate. In these world, animals were companions, sources of sustenance, and markers of wealth, all woven into a gentle, slow-moving tapestry of life. You notice the patterns of grazing, the way the flock moves in unison yet allows small freedoms, a delicate balance between control and trust, between care and letting go. Historically, herding emerged alongside early agriculture, creating a complementary rhythm of human existence. While fields required attention to planting, watering, and harvesting, pastures demanded vigilance, patience, and constant awareness. The two practices grew together, shaping early communities and helping them survive through the shifting cycles of the seasons. You can imagine Abel rising before sunrise, his eyes catching the first hints of color in the sky, listening for distant calls of wildlife, and sensing that the quiet order of his flock is both a duty and a form of meditation. You might smile at the thought that ancient herders probably had their own version of morning coffee. Perhaps warm water, and a soft word to a favorite sheep. You kneel to inspect the grass, noticing tiny details. Laden leaves, footprints from last night, and faint depressions where a lamb rested. Archaeologists have discovered that early shepherds cared for their animals with surprising sophistication. Sheep bones from thousands of years ago show evidence of primitive medical treatment, fractured legs supported with crude splints or injuries treated with herbal salves. The care is subtle, yet profound, revealing patience and respect for life. You quietly admire this gentle attention, connecting humans and their flocks across the sweep of time. The morning unfolds slowly. You follow Abel as he moves along the edge of a stream, checking the flock and murmuring softly to animals that recognize his voice. Each movement is a rhythm, bending to inspect a foot, brushing away a stray twig, leading a hesitant lamb back to safety. The sun climbs gradually, casting long, warm shadows over the pasture and highlighting the soft curve of hills and valleys that cradled this early world. You notice the contrast between the structured labor of field work and the fluid, responsive work of shepherding. One demands planning and patience for the earth. The other demands presence and empathy for living creatures. You smile, thinking that even then, debates about which job was harder probably circulated quietly among neighbors. Abel's attention is not merely practical. It is contemplative. Each day offers subtle lessons. The timing of water intake, the preferences of individual animals, and the quiet signals of approaching weather. He learns from the flock as much as he guides it. You can feel the serenity of this practice, a slow hum underlying the rhythm of life. The wind carries sounds that are nearly imperceptible. The clink of a bell, a bird taking flight, distant rustling through reeds, blending into a gentle ambient melody. It is the music of early mornings, a soundtrack of calm observation, where every note is part of the vast, living story of the land. As the sun rises higher, the pasture awakens. Light catches the wool of the sheep, shifting patterns as they move. You follow Abel along soft trails in the grass, noticing how the animals respond with calm trust. A lamb nudges another playfully, reminding you that life in these early fields holds gentle humor alongside routine. Each action reflects a balance between care and freedom, patience and quiet authority. In contrast, Cain's work follows a different rhythm. His attention rests on the soil, the crops, the cycles of growth. Labor demands foresight, endurance, and steady repetition. The brothers' paths occasionally cross at shared meals or brief exchanges, yet each maintains its own pace. Abel learns patience through empathy with living creatures, Cain through observation of the land. Together, their distinct rhythms form a subtle harmony, quietly completing one another in understated, complementary ways. You pause to inhale deeply, savoring the mingling scents of grass, river, and animal. The pasture hums softly around you. Even the distant trees sway with a languid rhythm, mirroring the calm movements of shepherd and flock alike. You imagine that Abel reflects on his day not with urgency but with a sense of satisfaction, noticing small improvements, minor surprises, and the comfort of routines maintained. Each sunrise carries the same gentle promise, a day filled with soft rhythms, steady tasks, and quiet observation. As you move through the pastures, the calm of the landscape seems to synchronize with your own breathing. The morning stretches slowly, like warm honey spilling across the earth. You watch the brothers at work, Abel tending animals, Cain tending crops, and notice how their separate tasks complement one another, quietly laying a foundation for human life and memory. You might smile, realizing that even thousands of years later, mornings like this carry a simple lesson. The world unfolds best with patience, care, and gentle attention. By mid-morning, the pasture has settled fully into its soft rhythm. Abel's flock moves in coordinated patterns. Sunlight glints off dew-laden wool, and the wind drifts lazily over the fields. You step back, taking in the harmony of labor, observation, and care, sensing the steady heartbeat of life that flows across the first pastures, shaping both memory and story with quiet deliberation. You walk along a dusty path that winds through the earliest traces of human settlement, where the earth itself seems to remember the slow passage of countless footsteps. The village of Jericho stretches before you, a gentle cluster of mud brick structures nestled near the life-giving riverbanks. The sun casts warm, golden light over low walls and rounded rooftops, illuminating courtyards where generations of families once moved at an unhurried pace. The air carries the faint aroma of baked earth, smoke from small fires, and the soft scent of wildflowers that grow among the stones. You might smile imagining that Jericho's earliest residents never knew their simple homes would one day intrigue archaeologists, anthropologists, and curious travelers like yourself. Jericho stands as one of the oldest known settlements, with layers of habitation spanning thousands of years. Early communities gathered along the river, drawn by water, fertile soil, and safety. Life moved with the sun, the river's flow, and the subtle changes of the seasons. Families strolled slowly through narrow alleys, carrying baskets of grain or tending children and animals. There was no hurry, only the gentle rhythm of daily life, guided by necessity and the quiet pulse of the environment. The village itself is remarkable not only for its age, but also for the structures that hint at both ingenuity and mystery. Among the low walls and clustered homes stand remnants of a stone tower, rising faintly above the surrounding dwellings. Its purpose remains unclear, even to modern scholars. Was it a defensive structure, a ceremonial monument, or a marker of social organization? You can picture early villagers pausing to glance at the tower, perhaps speculating quietly among themselves, or simply treating it as part of the familiar landscape. Unremarkable in daily life, yet quietly imposing. You might chuckle softly imagining a child from thousands of years ago trying to climb it, only to be gently scolded by a parent. As you step carefully through narrow pathways, your attention is drawn to the repetition of shapes and textures. Round ovens embedded in walls, depressions in the ground where grain was stored, and small courtyards where water pooled after rain. Each element tells a story of human adaptation, ingenuity, and care. These structures reflect a way of life attuned to the land, responsive to the cycles of nature, and mindful of survival. You might notice how the sunlight shifts across these spaces, illuminating small details that speak to daily rituals. A pot left to dry, a footprint pressed into soft earth, or the faint curve of a wall that once sheltered a family from the wind. Some historians still debate whether the earliest settlements were seasonal or permanent. You imagine the debate unfolding in hushed tones, scholars poring over layers of mud and stone, considering evidence of storage, hearths, and domestic life. Meanwhile, life in Jericho continued at a measured pace, untroubled by academic curiosity. Early villagers likely moved with the seasons, planting, harvesting, and tending livestock, all in harmony with the natural rhythms around them. Your mind drifts into the simple patterns of their days: the rising sun, the fetching of water, the soft chatter of neighbors, the careful tending of crops. There is a calm certainty in these routines, a quiet understanding that life is sustained through attentiveness, patience, and gentle cooperation. You notice the small gestures that shaped life here. A woman arranging woven mats on a courtyard floor. A man guiding a child through steps of food preparation. Someone tending to a small fire that will cook the day's meal. Every action is deliberate, thoughtful, and performed with care. You feel yourself slowing to match this rhythm, your own breath aligning with the gentle cadence of village life. The past unfolds like a soft tapestry beneath your feet, revealing the quiet beauty of ordinary acts repeated over generations. The streets of Jericho wind in curves rather than straight lines, reflecting an organic development rather than rigid planning. You walk slowly, imagining the texture of mud brick under your hands, the warmth of sun-baked walls, and the faint, persistent hum of life that must have pervaded every corner. Animals, goats, sheep, perhaps even early dogs, move alongside humans in a shared rhythm. You might grin thinking that, even in this ancient village, a goat probably tried to nibble on freshly prepared bread, eliciting laughter or mild annoyance from someone nearby. In quiet corners, small shrines and markers appear, hinting at early religious practices or communal gatherings. These spaces, modest yet meaningful, offered glimpses into the spiritual life of Jericho. You sense that their understanding of the world was shaped not by complexity but by attention to the cycles of nature, the bond of community, and the care they gave to one another. Every path, courtyard, and structure whispers of a life measured in small, intentional. Histutus, a life that valued continuity, observation, and calm engagement with the world. The sun continues to rise, casting long shadows and highlighting textures worn smooth by generations. You walk alongside imagined villagers, observing their daily tasks, fetching water, preparing meals, tending animals, and talking in soft, unhurried voices. Each step feels connected, deliberate, a reflection of the slow, careful rhythm of early human existence. The village itself, with its enduring structures and faint mysteries, becomes a gentle teacher. It shows how life can unfold gracefully when approached with patience, care, and awareness. As you move slowly through Jericho, the interplay of light, shadow, stone, and earth wraps around you. You feel the rhythm of human presence blending with the gentle pulse of the land. Time flows softly here, like a river carving quiet channels in the soil. Nearby, you sense the brothers' lives unfolding. Abel tending flocks, Cain working the fields, each shaped by and shaping the subtle rhythm of early settlement life. The village hums with quiet continuity, its stones and mud carrying the weight of memory. You pause, inhaling the earthy scent of sun-warmed walls and paths. The slow steps of countless generations echo beneath your feet, filling you with calm. Jericho, with its enigmatic tower and enduring paths, invites slow observation, gentle wandering, and the settling of the earliest village rhythms into your own heartbeat. You step into the soft glow of evening, where light flickers and dances along walls and rooftops, casting long, gentle shadows. The village settles into a tranquil rhythm as the sun dips below the horizon, leaving a palette of deep oranges and muted purples. Here, warmth comes not from urgency, but from small, attentive sources, torches made from resinous wood, thinly sliced wicks soaked in animal fat, and simple oil lamps glowing with a steady, comforting pulse. You notice the way each flame moves slightly, swaying as if breathing in time with the humans it illuminates. You might smile, imagining that someone long ago accidentally singed their sleeve while reaching for a stubborn wick, and then laughed softly at their own clumsiness. These sources of light were vital to early communities. By around 4500 BCE, people were using oil lamps to extend the day, illuminating homes, workshops, and courtyards. As the darkness of night settled in, light allowed for quiet work, storytelling, and reflection long after the sun disappeared. You can picture a family gathered around a low-burning lamp, its gentle heat radiating across faces, walls, and tables. The soft glow creates a sense of intimacy, a cocoon of calm where shadows move slowly and the world outside seems distant. It is a time for observing small details: the curve of a clay pot, the ripple of a water jar, the gleam of woven fibers. Remarkably, some of these lamps, unearthed millennia later, can still burn when provided with a bit of oil and a wick. Archaeologists have marveled at the durability of these small artifacts, wondering how such fragile-seeming objects survived the passage of time. You feel a quiet fascination, imagining a modern hand lighting an ancient lamp and watching it cast a flame that once illuminated the life of someone long ago. There is a gentle humor in the thought that perhaps someone from the past would peer at you through time, curious to see if their lamp still brought comfort. As the flames dance, you notice how the soft light reshapes the familiar environment. Shadows stretch across the ground, merging with the shapes of walls, trees, and low benches. The flickering creates a gentle rhythm, like breathing, slowing the mind and the body. You might pause to consider the sensation of watching a flame. It draws your attention while simultaneously allowing it to rest. It is hypnotic, not in a startling way, but in the slow, steady cadence that encourages stillness. The world contracts to the warmth of the glow, the texture of clay, and the muted movements of those around you. Evenings in these ancient communities are marked by subtle rituals. Some involve tending the flame carefully, trimming wicks, or replenishing oil. Others involve listening, the quiet murmur of conversation, the soft snore of resting animals, or the gentle ripple of water in a nearby stream. You imagine Abel and Cain perhaps pausing in separate spaces, each observing their own small corners of life. One tending flocks by the last light of day, the other smoothing soil and checking crops by the warm glow of a lamp. Their lives continue in parallel, connected by the rhythm of labor, reflection, and the comfort of soft illumination. You can almost hear the stories being told, passed from one person to another under the gentle glow. Early humans were masters of oral history, weaving tales about ancestors, creation, and the cycles of nature. Each word floats lightly through the air, carried by flickering light across small spaces. Shadows on the walls mimic the gestures of the speakers, enhancing the quiet theater of the evening. You might smile at the notion that some of these stories included the kind of gentle humor we still share today, a reminder that playfulness and warmth were never absent from daily life. The movement of the flame mirrors life itself, patient, deliberate, and ever-changing. You notice the warmth it brings: two hands cupped around small cups, two faces leaning toward the light for a moment of comfort. The smell of burning fat is earthy and grounding, anchoring your senses to the moment. You might picture an animal flicking its ear at the scent, a child watching the shadows dance, and someone quietly humming a tune that has been carried across generations. In this environment, time feels malleable, slowing to match the gentle pulse of flickering light. Even in the quiet, there are discoveries. You might notice the subtle variations in how the flame interacts with surfaces, revealing textures that are otherwise invisible in the fading daylight. The way a pot's edge catches a flicker, or the unevenness of a wall softened by centuries, invites contemplative observation. Each detail becomes a small meditation, a gentle acknowledgement of human ingenuity, care, and the interplay between life and environment. You feel a growing sense of connection to those who walked this land thousands of years ago, each action a quiet continuation of an enduring rhythm. The evening deepens, and the world outside the circle of light fades into muted tones. The village exhales, slowing its collective heartbeat. Shadows merge, animals settle, and humans draw inward, their movements small, deliberate, and rhythmic. You might take a deep breath, noticing the subtle comfort in the repetition. Tending a lamp, arranging a mat, whispering a story. The flame becomes a companion, steady yet alive, teaching patience, observation, and the quiet joy of simple tasks. As you move gently through this candlelit evening, calm envelops you completely. The past and present mingle in the warm flicker of flames, the shifting shadows, and the faint scent of earth and burning oil. You feel the enduring rhythm of human life, flowing slowly through hands, footsteps, and the quiet labor of the night. Each movement seems deliberate yet unhurried, a testament to patience and care. In this serene glow, reflection comes naturally, allowing your mind to drift with the gentle heartbeat of the evening. You attune yourself to the soft pulse of human presence, the subtle beauty of shifting light, and the quiet intimacy of a world slowed by fire. Time seems to stretch, inviting a deep sense of peace and mindful observation. You step onto a quiet path, where the soft dust rises gently beneath your feet, carrying whispers of countless travelers who walked this way long before you. The trail winds lazily between gentle slopes, hugging low ridges and threading past scattered trees, until it disappears into the horizon where distant settlements lie. The air is warm and earthy, tinged with the faint scent of dry soil, crushed leaves, and the occasional whisper of a breeze. You notice how the ground feels subtly uneven, shaped by centuries of footsteps, hooves, and wagons, each leaving impressions that the earth has slowly absorbed. You might smile at the thought that someone a few millennia ago probably complained about the dust sticking to their sandals, just as you do now. This trail is more than a passage. It is part of an ancient network linking early settlements. For millennia, merchants, herders, and travelers moved along these routes, carrying goods, ideas, and news from village to village. Sumerian tablets record trade in grain, textiles, and tools, while archaeology shows distant communities remained connected despite slow travel. Each step you take echoes these journeys, reminders that even early humans sought exchange and understanding. The dust beneath holds stories too. Fossilized footprints of humans and animals endure through heat, rain, and wind. You imagine a child stepping carefully beside an adult, leaving a tiny print that survives countless generations, a quiet testament that even ordinary actions can leave lasting marks on the world. You follow the trail slowly, noticing how the light shifts along its length. In the early morning, long shadows stretch across low mounds and ridges. In the late afternoon, dust rises in golden waves, catching the sun in ways that feel almost magical. You breathe in, letting your senses absorb the quiet rhythm of this ancient route. Imagine the conversations, songs, and soft laughter that once accompanied travelers along the same path. You might even picture a merchant joking with a companion over a misbehaving donkey, a scene repeated countless times across centuries, echoing with timeless humanity. The trail eventually bends toward cultivated land, where fields stretch gently across valleys, rich with soil that has sustained generations. Here, Cain's presence becomes tangible. The path brings you to the edge of his plots, where the careful turning of earth, sowing of seeds, and tending of crops reflect both skill and patience. The land is central to his existence, providing sustenance, structure, and a quiet rhythm that guides his days. You notice the subtle variations in soil color, the gentle rise of furrows, and the occasional patch of wild growth left intentionally, a sign of respect for the cycles of nature. Agriculture in these early times was delicate and exacting. Farmers like Cain observed the land, noting which plots yielded the most, which required more attention, and how seasonal patterns influenced growth. You imagine him walking slowly through the fields, running a hand over tender shoots, feeling the texture of soil between his fingers, and sensing the subtle differences that determine a crop's success. This work is slow, reflective, and unhurried, a meditation on patience and observation. You might smile, thinking that even Cain probably had a favorite patch of earth, a corner of his field that seemed to respond to care with a quiet loyalty. The trail and the fields together form a gentle rhythm, one that balances movement and stillness. The path guides you toward distant villages, yet also anchors you in the immediate presence of land, soil, and quiet labor. You notice how these early networks of roads were carefully maintained, their shape molded over time by continuous use, yet soft enough to allow for natural growth along the edges. Each bend in the path feels deliberate, a subtle choreography of travel and human attention, creating spaces where both movement and rest coexist. You pause to observe the interplay between trail and earth. Dust swirls softly as your foot lifts, drifting like faint echoes of footsteps long gone. The soil of Cain's fields, enriched by centuries of care, lies nearby. Its dark, fertile texture, a gentle contrast to the pale dust of the path. You sense that in this landscape, humans are always interacting with the environment, shaping it as much as it shapes them. Every seed planted, every step taken, becomes part of a larger story, woven through time and reflected in the quiet dust beneath your feet. As the day unfolds, you notice details that might otherwise go unseen. The way sunlight warms a low mound, the distant sound of a stream trickling along its channel, or the faint impression of a hoof pressed long ago into soft earth. These small observations carry a profound sense of continuity, connecting past, present, and future. You feel the presence of those who traveled this trail long ago: traders, herders, children, and elders, each contributing to the gentle accumulation of memory and experience embedded in the land. You follow the trail further, past patches of grazing land, small streams, and gentle rises in the earth. The world moves slowly here, allowing you to notice textures, smells, and subtle movements that often go overlooked. Your breathing aligns with the rhythm of walking, the soft thud of foot against dust, and the faint whisper of wind across furrows. You sense the calm continuity of life along these ancient trails, and how the earth, dust, and human presence interweave to create a quiet, enduring tapestry. By the time you reach Cain's fields, the trail has led you through a world shaped by patience, care, and quiet attention. Dust clings to your sandals, a soft reminder of the countless footsteps before you, linking humans to the paths they tread. In this reflective journey, the ancient trails teach a simple truth. Life flows steadily when observed and tended with care, and every footprint ephemeral or fossilized bears the enduring, gentle weight of time. You lie on a gentle slope just beyond the village, the soft earth beneath you still warm from the day's lingering heat. Above, the sky stretches wide and velvety, sprinkled with countless stars that twinkle as if whispering to one another. The cool air carries hints of grass, soil, and distant smoke. You tilt your head back, tracing the faint trails of constellations that have guided travelers, dreamers, and shepherds for millennia. You might smile, imagining someone long ago attempting to name a star after their favorite goat or donkey, adding humor to the vast cosmos. Stargazing was more than idle curiosity for early community Zet, was a way to understand time, seasons, and the natural world. The Babylonians, in particular, observed the night sky meticulously, recording star and planet movements to guide planting, navigation, and rituals. Watching the slow drift of constellations, you feel a quiet connection to those ancient scribes, noting the same patterns and cycles, and find reassurance in the constancy of stars while the world below continues its gentle, ever-changing rhythm. Some of the constellations they observed have faded from memory. Their names, meanings, and stories have been lost, leaving only the silent stars themselves. You imagine that the early observers would trace these patterns with a stick or their finger, whispering tidings to children or friends as the night stretched gently onward. Perhaps a star once associated with rain, another with hunting, another with an imagined creature, now drifts through the sky without a story, a silent witness to the passage of time. You might chuckle softly at the idea that ancient humans, like us, sometimes forgot things, leaving mysteries for future generations to ponder. The gentle hush of the evening encourages reflection. You breathe slowly, noticing the cool air against your skin, the faint rustle of leaves stirred by a whisper of wind, and the soft hum of nocturnal creatures waking as darkness deepens. The stars move slowly, tracing invisible paths across the black canvas above. Their light is subtle, persistent, and calming, inviting you to let go of worries and immerse yourself in the quiet vastness. Each flicker feels like a gentle pulse, syncing with your own breathing, guiding your mind towards stillness. You imagine the early humans lying in similar positions, gazing at the same sky, wondering about their place in the universe. Perhaps Abel, after tending his flock, or Cain, walking back from the fields, paused to watch the stars, feeling a quiet awe and comfort in their steady presence. Their lives, rich with labor, observation, and care, were also punctuated by moments of pause and reflection under the celestial vault. You feel a sense of kinship with them, connected through the shared experience of witnessing the same patterns, feeling the same quiet, enduring rhythm of night. The constellations act as gentle markers of time, guiding, planting, harvesting, and the passage of seasons. Yet, they also serve as anchors for imagination, storytelling, and contemplation. You notice a faint cluster of stars forming a shape reminiscent of a small animal or a tool. Whether or not the ancient observers saw it the same way is unclear, but the exercise of looking, interpreting, and imagining imbues the night with a sense of calm and purpose. You might grin softly at the thought that even thousands of years ago, people likely argued about what shapes the stars formed, much as we do today, blending curiosity with humor and wonder. The stillness of the night fosters a gentle meditation. You close your eyes briefly and listen. The whisper of wind across the slopes, the distant lowing of animals, and the subtle chorus of nocturnal insects. Each sound is delicate, punctuating the quiet darkness, grounding you in the present moment. The sky above feels infinite yet intimate, a canopy under which all early humans rested, reflected, and dreamed. In this space, you sense a profound continuity. The same stars, observed by Babylonians, Sumerians, and shepherds linger above, unchanging in their motion, reminding you of both permanence and patience. You open your eyes again, tracing a faintly recognizable pattern across the heavens. You imagine early observers using these stars to anticipate rain, to guide journeys, and to anchor stories shared beside evening fires. You notice how constellations interact subtly with the landscape. The gentle slope beneath you, the nearby settlement, and the distant fields, all bathed in soft starlight. Even in the absence of precise knowledge, humans relied on observation, intuition, and quiet attention to navigate both the physical and emotional landscape of their world. You feel a slow, comforting rhythm. Inhale, exhale, gaze, rest, notice, release. The stars twinkle steadily, indifferent yet endlessly comforting. You can sense Abel and Cain somewhere in the distance, wrapped in the quiet conclusion of their day, each reflecting in their own way under the vast sky. Perhaps they traced shapes in the stars, or whispered small observations to each other. You smiled gently at the idea that even in the earliest days, humans found both wonder and solace in looking upward. The night stretches softly, each star a faint pulse of light against the dark expanse. You feel yourself sinking deeper into calm awareness, attuned to the quiet rhythm of nature, life, and the universe above. Every flicker of starlight, every whisper of wind, every faint murmur from the distant village encourages a gentle stillness in your mind. The sky holds its secrets lightly, allowing you to drift comfortably between wonder and peace. Lying on the soft slope, you watch constellations glide slowly across the heavens. Feeling the ancient world, esse hentle embros, the stars remind you that life moves at its own rhythm. Patience, observation, and quiet reflection flow from this first night sky, lessons echoing across millennia. You close your eyes, letting the cool air and starlight settle over you, and drift into the calm, unhurried pulse of these ancient evenings. You walk slowly over a gentle rise, feeling the textured, ancient earth beneath your feet and a faint chill in the wind. Before you, massive stones rise, like quiet sentinels, etched with patterns and figures from a time when humans first carved meaning into the land. Animals frozen mid-leap, abstract spirals, and cryptic lines invite quiet attention, whispering across centuries. You might smile, imagining these carvings intended messages for gods or perhaps for the neighborhood goats, likely far less impressed than their creators hoped. Gaglitepi, located in the rolling hills of what is now southeastern Turkey, is considered one of the oldest known religious sites. Scholars date its earliest structures to around 9600 BCE, long before the first cities rose in Mesopotamia. You feel a sense of awe as you trace the gentle contours of the stonework with your eyes, noting how enormous pillars stand in deliberate arrangements, forming circles and enclosures. The placement seems careful, considered, and purposeful, suggesting a people deeply attuned to both the physical and spiritual landscapes of their time. Each stone feels like a silent witness to countless gatherings, rituals, and contemplations that once unfolded here under the sun and stars. The carvings are strikingly enigmatic. Some show wild animals, foxes, snakes, boars rendered with careful attention, while others form abstract patterns whose meanings remain elusive. Archaeologists speculate endlessly. Why were the stones arranged in circles? Who gathered here? And for what purpose? Ceremony, socializing, or teaching? You might quietly smile, realizing that even after millennia, humans still debate our ancestors' intentions, proving curiosity and mild confusion are timeless. Yet, the stones convey human care and intention. Their surfaces bear repeated smoothing and careful carving, suggesting a desire to communicate with both the tangible and invisible. You imagine hands pressing against cold stone, chisels scraping lightly, people standing together in quiet reflection or gentle ceremony. Life moved deliberately here, attuned to the rising sun, moon, phases, and the cycles of animals and plants, creating a measured, thoughtful rhythm that bridged humans, nature, and the mysteries they sought to capture. The purpose of Göbekli Tepe's construction remains open to interpretation. Some suggest it was a sanctuary, a space for early priests or shamans to guide their communities and rituals that ensured survival and connection to the unseen world. Others consider it a teaching site, a place to record stories or mark celestial events. You can feel the gentle ambiguity here as you wander among the stones, sensing the deliberate uncertainty that permeates the site. There is a quiet charm in leaving questions unanswered and allowing symbols to speak softly and to encourage reflection rather than conclusion. You notice how the stones themselves interact with the landscape. Light shifts slowly across the carvings as the sun moves, revealing details hidden in shadows and highlighting textures that were invisible moments before. The surrounding hills and distant plains seem to frame the site, emphasizing its presence without overpowering it. You might imagine early observers marveling at the alignment of the stones with the horizon, perhaps marking solstices or observing seasonal changes, all while tending to daily life nearby. There is a gentle humor in picturing someone tripping over a small rock while trying to arrange a massive pillar, reminding you that human imperfection has always been part of monumental endeavors. Amid these silent markers, you feel a connection to the earliest humans and their contemplations. Every symbol, every careful carving, embodies a thought or intention that is both ordinary and extraordinary. Ordinary because it is the work of human hands, and extraordinary because it has persisted for millennia. You notice how the slow repetition of symbols and patterns creates a rhythm, a cadence that mirrors the unhurried passage of life. There is comfort in this, a reminder that even when meaning is uncertain, the act of observation, creation, and reflection carries its own quiet significance. As you wander among the pillars, you begin to feel a gentle link to the story of the first family. The patterns of human care, attention, and intention resonate with the lives of Cain and Abel. Just as the early builders of Göbekli Tepe left traces of thought, ritual, and labor on stone, the brothers' lives are quietly inscribed into the rhythms of early human existence. Cain tending fields, Abel tending flocks, each moving with awareness, patience, and gentle care. The world around them, soil, stone, sky, and water, participates in this rhythm, reflecting both continuity and subtle mystery. The silence of the site encourages a reflective pace. You walk slowly, noting the weight of history pressed lightly into the earth and stone. Each pillar and carving becomes a meditation, a reminder of human presence reaching across millennia, connecting imagination, ritual, and daily life. You notice how even unresolved questions, the purpose of certain carvings, the reasoning behind placement, add to the gentle beauty of the sight, offering space for curiosity, wonder, and contemplation. The breeze shifts, carrying the faint scent of dry grass and distant soil. You pause to trace the outline of a particularly intricate carving, imagining the hand that made it and the careful attention invested. There is a subtle rhythm to this place, an ebb and flow of human attention, quiet labor, and enduring presence. You sense the ancient builder standing beside you, their work continuing through time in the impressions left on stone. And so, with the soft wind, the quiet stone, and the faint echo of human intention, you feel a gentle bridge forming between the monumental past and the intimate lives of early families. The symbols invite calm reflection. The mystery encourages patience, and the persistent rhythm of human care resonates softly in your mind. You leave Göbekli Tepe with a sense of serene continuity, ready to follow the gentle threads that connect sacred stones, cultivated fields, and the quiet moments of the first family. You step into an expanse of soft, swaying grasses, where the gentle hum of the wind moves like a song across the meadow. The ground underfoot is firm yet yielding, a tapestry of earth and green that stretches toward the horizon. Sunlight falls in delicate patterns through thin clouds, warming the meadow without urgency. You hear the faint rustle of leaves, the soft clatter of distant bird wings, and perhaps the occasional bleat from a wandering lamb. It is here, in this serene openness, that you imagine Abel moving slowly among his flock, each step careful, each glance attentive. You might smile, thinking that even a shepherd has a favorite blade of grass, or a particularly mischievous lamb to chase. These meadows were once abundant across ancient Mesopotamia, a region that supported both grazing and early agriculture. Before cities and irrigation reshaped the land, these grassy plains were rich with flora, streams, and wild creatures. The balance of sun, soil, and water created an environment ideal for both humans and livestock. You can picture Abel walking with his charges, feeling the texture of grass beneath his sandals, noting subtle changes in the terrain, and listening to the faint whisper of wind across gentle slopes. Life here moves slowly, dictated by natural rhythms rather than urgency. The land itself holds stories in its layers. Some fields, now desertified, still preserve traces of past life within deep soil layers. Remarkably, pollen from ancient plants remains embedded, a delicate reminder of a world long transformed by climate, cultivation, and time. You imagine a gentle archaeologist centuries later, brushing away dust from a fossilized flower, marveling at the persistence of life's small details. It is comforting to think that even as landscapes shift and generations pass, the earth quietly preserves fragments of its past, like a diary written in pollen and soil. Abel's presence in this meadow is calm and unhurried. He tends his flock with attention and care, guiding animals slowly along well-worn paths that weave between grasses and small wildflowers. The work is rhythmic and soothing, offering time for observation, thought, and gentle humor. You might picture Abel speaking softly to a wandering lamb, or noticing a curious bird perched on a low branch, making a silent joke about its boldness. Each moment blends labor with reflection, weaving together human care and natural beauty into a seamless, unbroken rhythm. The sunlight shifts gently as the day progresses, casting long shadows that stretch across the meadow. Colors subtly change. Green becomes gold, soft browns emerge, and distant hills are outlined in muted purples. You can almost hear the whisper of grasses, swaying with the wind, creating a soothing cadence that invites deep breath and calm awareness. The meadow feels like a sanctuary, a space where time slows, and each movement, each sound, each scent becomes more vivid. You feel the pulse of life in the gentle sway of plants, the subtle stir of insects, and the occasional shuffle of a sheep's hooves. This quiet environment fosters observation and reflection. Abel's routine in the meadow allows him to notice patterns, the way light falls at different times of day, the subtle signs of a storm approaching, or the behavior of animals adjusting to the sun's warmth. There is wisdom in this stillness, a slow understanding of cycles, patience, and the quiet interconnectedness of life. You might smile gently at the thought that Abel probably knew each lamb individually, recognizing its personality, its quirks, and the rhythm of its movement across the field. The meadow's vastness encourages a sense of connection to the larger world. In the distance, streams glimmer faintly, reflecting clouds as they drift lazily overhead. Trees punctuate the horizon, offering shade and occasional shelter, while wildflowers dot the landscape with subtle bursts of color. The openness invites both exploration and repose, allowing your attention to wander without rush. You notice how the land seems to breathe alongside you. Grasses sway, the sun warms, and the wind moves in quiet patterns that echo the soft rhythm of life itself. Even as some areas of Mesopotamia later shifted to desert, the memory of these meadows persists in soil, seeds, and pollen layers. Deep below the surface, it is remarkable to consider that beneath harsh sand and cracked earth, traces of lush pastures still remain, offering a bridge across time. You imagine the delicate dusting of pollen, preserved for millennia, like a tiny signature of a world that once thrived with gentle life, resilient and quietly enduring. As you move slowly through the meadow, the narrative of life unfolds gently. Abel's presence, the patterns of grazing, and the soft light all create a calm, unhurried story that reflects the balance of humans with nature. There is no conflict here, only continuity and rhythm. Each step, each breath, and each observation contributes to the quiet flow of life. You sense how these fields supported generations, offering sustenance, reflection, and a sense of grounding that shaped both daily work and contemplative thought. The day deepens, and the light softens, bathing the meadow in gentle golden hues. Shadows stretch and lengthen, blending the forms of grasses, flowers, and animals into a serene tapestry. You pause to feel the textures underfoot, the scent of sun-warmed earth, and the subtle movement of wind, appreciating the slow unfolding of time. Life in the meadow is deliberate, measured, and kind, offering space for reflection and gentle humor alike. You watch Abel guide his flock toward shelter, the sheep moving obediently yet freely, a quiet choreography of trust and care. The meadow itself seems to exhale, the day's warmth lingering in the earth while the wind cools your skin. You sense a calm link to the past, where centuries of labor, observation, and quiet reflection linger. Amid swaying grasses, your breath slows, and the world feels soft, steady, and serene. You settle by a small fire, the flames flickering gently as the evening wind swirls around you. The warmth radiates softly, inviting your senses to relax, while the shadows dance across the ground in quiet patterns. You notice the comforting scent of smoke curling lazily into the air, mingling with the faint aroma of earth and grass. The fire casts long, slow-moving shapes that seem almost alive, as if eager to participate in the tales about to unfold. You might smile at the thought that even someone thousands of years ago probably complained about the smoke in their eyes, just as you do now. A small circle of listeners gathers, leaning in with quiet attention as a storyteller begins recounting tales of the first family. Words flow slowly, each carefully chosen to create a gentle rhythm. Children lean forward, eyes wide with wonder, while elders nod knowingly, recalling memories long past. The stories of Cain, Abel, and their family weave together labor, reflection, and daily life, carrying subtle humor, a mischievous lamb, a stubborn ox, fleeting frustrations, making the tales timeless and relatable. Oral storytelling was central to early human culture. Around fires, people shared knowledge, guidance, and cultural practices. These narratives preserved social norms and insights about survival, connecting listeners to their ancestors and the natural world. The crackle of the fire echoes the rhythm of these ancient gatherings, grounding you in the present while drawing you into a distant past, where stories shaped memory, community, and the enduring human imagination. Some of these oral traditions were astonishingly long. Anthropologists have documented that certain tribes maintained continuous oral histories for over 10,000 years, preserving intricate details, genealogies, and local knowledge through story alone. You can imagine a young listener centuries ago, absorbing a tale that had already traversed generations, unknowingly becoming a link in a chain of memory that stretched across time. It is remarkable to consider the resilience of human recollection, the care taken to preserve knowledge in a world without written records. You might even chuckle at the thought that, like us, early humans probably misremembered small details, adding their own quirks and humor to keep the story lively. As the tale unfolds, you notice the careful pacing of the storyteller. Events are recounted slowly, with pauses to let images settle and emotions resonate. Cain's toil in the fields, Abel's gentle tending of flocks, the subtle rhythms of labor and observation, all are presented without urgency, allowing listeners to absorb the quiet lessons embedded in daily life. These stories carry weight not through dramatic conflict, but through reflection, teaching patience, mindfulness, and the value of careful attention. You sense that the act of listening is itself an important ritual, one that fosters a calm awareness of time, effort, and human connection. Some historians still debate whether oral traditions preserved exact events or symbolic lessons. The ambiguity adds a soft layer of mystery to these narratives, whether the story of Cain and Abel reflects literal occurrences or represents metaphorical truths about family, labor, and human nature. The tale's endurance speaks to its significance. You feel a quiet curiosity, imagining the gentle negotiations of memory, interpretation, and imagination that allowed stories to survive and adapt across countless nights of firelight and conversation. The firelight flickers across faces in the circle, illuminating expressions of contemplation, amusement, and recognition. You notice subtle gestures, a hand brushing away a stray leaf, a nod to mark understanding, a smile that reflects shared appreciation of clever observation or humor embedded in the story. In this way, storytelling is interactive, a slow dance of attention and response that deepens bonds within the community. You imagine that every listener, while hearing the tale, also contributes their own awareness, enriching the narrative with subtle, personal understanding. You sense the quiet intimacy of oral transmission. Words are accompanied by gesture, tone, and occasional pause, each element reinforcing the meaning and rhythm of the tale. The fire itself becomes a companion, its warmth and motion synchronizing with the storytelling, creating a comforting atmosphere that encourages reflection. You might notice that even the smallest sounds, a twig snapping underfoot, a distant bird, the wind shifting, become part of the rhythm, reminding you that stories exist within a larger, interconnected world. As night deepens, the story flows smoothly across generations, describing fields, flocks, and daily routines with a gentle cadence. Life's quiet rhythm standing, observing, resting, connecting unfold without rush. Each scene like a slow ripple across memory, inviting calm and reflection. The tale carries subtle guidance. Abel's care for his flock, Cain's dedication to the fields, and the family's measured interactions teach patience, attentiveness, and harmony with the land and each other. Gentle humor in Abel's small misadventures reminds you that learning often arrives with lighthearted, human moments, making the lessons both enduring and relatable. Finally, you feel the collective rhythm of story, fire, and night settle around you. The warmth of the flames, the faint scent of smoke, and the soft murmurs of listeners create a calm cocoon. Stories of the first family drift gently into memory, carrying the quiet cadence of human life across millennia. The past and present intermingle softly, and you feel a sense of continuity, as though you are both observer and participant in the ongoing unfolding of human experience. In this gentle evening, under the soft glow of firelight, the weight of early stories is not heavy at all. It rests lightly, like pollen drifting on the wind, carrying fragments of wisdom, humor, and reflection. Each tale, each pause, each careful word creates a space for calm attention, connecting you to generations long past while soothing the rhythms of your own mind. The fire crackles softly, the meadow beyond remains still, and the first family's story continues to unfold, slow, serene, and enduring. You stand at the edge of a wide field, the dark soil soft and inviting beneath your feet. A gentle rain begins to fall, each droplet deliberate and soothing, pattering softly on leaves, grass, and the furrows Cain has tended with care. The air, carries the rich scent of wet earth, mingling with the faint sweetness of crushed plants and moss. There is a quiet sense of renewal, as if the world itself inhales slowly, then exhales a soft, contented sigh. You might smile, imagining that even 1,000 years ago, someone grumbled when the rain interrupted their meal, proof that minor inconveniences are timeless. Rain was vital to early agriculture. Ancient humans observed its cycles closely, using it to guide planting, harvesting, and field care. Cain's work aligns with these rhythms. He notices the darkening soil, the softening earth, and the way moisture rises from the ground. Each observation shapes his actions, from scattering seeds to tending irrigation, creating a gentle dialogue with the land. The falling rain mirrors the quiet rhythm of labor, reflection, and patience that defines early agrarian life. Early Mesopotamian agriculture relied on the rhythm of rain and seasonal cycles. Settlements grew near rivers, guided by careful observation of clouds, wind, and animal behavior. You can picture Cain noticing birds sheltering beneath branches, intuitively preparing fields and livestock. This delicate balance between humans and nature required patience and attentive care, passed down through generations, shaping a gentle, enduring connection with the land. Some unusual rainfall events are recorded in ancient clay tablets, marking years when precipitation was unusually high or low. These anomalies had significant effects on crops and livelihoods, and their preservation in early records speaks to the importance of attentive observation. You might chuckle softly, imagining that people millennia ago reacted with similar exasperation to an unexpected storm, perhaps muttering to the sky as if it were an old friend with a quirky sense of timing. The knowledge gathered from such events shaped practices, rituals, and expectations, ensuring that communities could endure and thrive in a variable world. As the rain falls, the field transforms into a living mosaic. Drops create tiny ripples and puddles, darken the edges of furrows, and cling to blades of grass. Cain moves carefully, his feet sinking slightly into the soft earth, observing the subtle changes and adjusting his care accordingly. Each step, each glance, each hand resting on damp soil is a meditation in motion, a deliberate engagement with the living, breathing land. There is a quiet satisfaction in witnessing the soil respond to rainfall, a sense of harmony between human effort and natural generosity. The gentle patter encourages calm reflection. You notice the rhythm of your own breathing, syncing with the rainfall, each exhale coinciding with a soft splash against the earth. The sky is muted, a pale gray canvas that contrasts with the vibrant greens and browns of the field. Occasionally, a drop falls on your hand or cheek, a cool, fleeting reminder of the immediate, tactile connection to the environment. Life in this landscape is measured and mindful, guided by patience, observation, and the delicate balance of work and weather. Abel, tending his flocks nearby, is similarly affected by the rain. The sheep huddle together, seeking shelter under sparse trees or in natural hollows, while Abel moves gently among them, guiding, observing, and occasionally chuckling at a particularly adventurous lamb. The rain softens the day's labor without erasing it, encouraging attentiveness and a gentle pace. You might imagine Abel humming softly, a tune that merges with the rain's rhythm, creating a subtle harmony that stretches across meadow and field alike. The earth itself holds the story of rainfall, capturing layers of moisture, sediment, and organic matter over centuries. Some soil samples reveal patterns of ancient precipitation, fluctuations that influenced crop success, settlement growth, and survival strategies. You feel a quiet wonder at the persistence of the land, remembering that beneath your feet, countless seasons have come and gone, leaving their gentle mark. Even today, you sense that same rhythm, a slow pulse connecting past, present, and the timeless cycles of nature. The soundscape is soothing, rain tapping on leaves, soft gurgles in the furrows, distant bleats from Abel's sheep, and the occasional rustle of wind across grass. These gentle noises weave together in a meditative chorus, inviting stillness and attentiveness. You notice how even small variations in intensity, slightly heavier drops, a brief lull, a hint of wind enrich the sensory experience, making each moment distinct while remaining calm and unhurried. The rainfall gradually softens, leaving behind a landscape renewed and glistening. The fields glimmer in muted reflections of cloud and sky, the soil pliant and fragrant. Cain pauses, pressing his hands lightly into the damp earth, appreciating the transformation. You feel the quiet satisfaction of this interaction, sensing the continuity of life is a slow rhythm: labor, observation, patience, and reflection. The land receives care, responds gently, and endures, echoing the same steady persistence found in human endeavors. As the rain fades, the atmosphere becomes tranquil. Mist rises slowly from the fields, blending with the soft hum of insects and the distant lowing of livestock. Shadows lengthen, colors deepen, and the day's rhythm transitions naturally toward evening. You inhale deeply, savoring the subtle scents, textures, and sounds that mark this timeless landscape. In this serene interlude, the land, rain, and people are connected in quiet harmony, preparing the mind and body for the calm passage of night. The gentle rain, the soft earth, and the steady presence of Cain and Abel invite reflection, stillness, and mindfulness. You feel the pulse of time slowing, the weight of daily concerns fading, and a deep appreciation for the natural cycles that sustain life. The world feels soft, measured, and enduring, like a slow, comforting breath that stretches across generations. You step into a quiet hall of knowledge, where the air holds the faint scent of clay, ink, and centuries past. The space feels intimate, yet vast, lined with shelves of clay tablets, each preserving human thought and memory. Soft light filters through small windows, illuminating the etched cuneiform marks. You run your fingers lightly along a surface, sensing the subtle ridges left by hands long gone. You might smile, imagining that even thousands of years ago, someone sighed over a smudged tablet just as you frown at a typo today. This is the Library of Ash, located in the ancient city of Nineveh, a real and extraordinary place. Built in the 7th century BC, it housed thousands of clay tablets documenting a wide spectrum of knowledge: literature, astronomy, administrative records, rituals, and chronicles of daily life. Walking among the neatly organized collections, you sense the incredible ambition of those who gathered and preserved these works, recognizing their desire to capture human experience in tangible, lasting form. The library is more than a building. It is a sanctuary of memory, a testament to the enduring human impulse to understand, record, and reflect. The tablets themselves are remarkable, each carefully inscribed with the details of life in the ancient Near East: farming, laws, myths, and philosophical thoughts. Every small mark feels deliberate, each wedge-shaped symbol a vessel of care and intention. Some tablets remain nearly pristine, their surfaces uncracked and inscriptions sharp, despite being buried for centuries. The preservation is astonishing, a testament to the resilience of clay as a medium for memory. It endures far beyond the people who created it, like echoes lingering after a whispered conversation, quietly holding the past. Among the texts, you find narratives that describe the very landscapes you have wandered: fertile fields, gentle rivers, early settlements, and even references to families whose stories echo the lives of Cain and Abel. The continuity between human experience and written record is striking. You imagine scribes working by the dim glow of lamps, pressing each wedge carefully into moist clay, perhaps with the soft hum of distant conversation or the occasional playful remark among apprentices. The act of creation is slow, deliberate, and rhythmically soothing, much like tending a flock or walking through a meadow in quiet reflection. Some of these tablets contain records of extraordinary precision. Astronomical observations, seasonal cycles, and ritual calendars are noted with care, demonstrating early humans' careful attention to natural patterns. These inscriptions link knowledge of the earth, sky, and human behavior, reflecting a holistic understanding that blends practical necessity with contemplative insight. You might chuckle at the thought that early scribes probably joked quietly about celestial omens, just as we today make light of the stars, stubborn, Insistence on alignment. The library of Ashurbanipal is not only a repository of facts, it is a meditation on memory itself. Walking between rows of tablets, you sense the quiet weight of accumulated human thought, the patient recording of experience and observation. You notice the interplay of repetition and variation. Similar stories inscribed slightly differently, echoing across generations. This gentle rhythm reinforces the continuity of human reflection and imagination, connecting the ordinary and the profound. Each tablet represents both a moment and a legacy, a single breath captured and preserved across the centuries. Even the imperfections of the collection are part of its charm. Cracks in some tablets, smudges in others, and small chips along edges testify to the passage of time and human handling. These subtle marks remind you that preservation is never perfect, yet imperfection itself becomes part of the story. You sense that history is as much about resilience and adaptation as it is about perfection or completeness. The enduring presence of knowledge, even when partially obscured, mirrors the persistence of memory across all human experience. As you linger, you reflect on the connections between written and oral memory. Just as stories of early families were passed around fires, these tablets carry their narratives across time in tangible form. They capture not only events, but also human perspective, humor, and attention to detail. There is a meditative quality in observing these links. The rhythm of creation, the careful marking of each symbol, and the gentle passing of insight from one generation to the next. You can almost hear the faint echo of human voices, the soft murmur of discussion, or the subtle laughter of someone explaining a particularly tricky cuneiform sign to a student. Some tablets record rituals and prayers, others legal codes or lists of goods, yet all are unified by the quiet devotion of those who made them. You feel a sense of kinship across time, sensing the same careful attention and reflective thought in your own life. Even as millennia separate you from these ancient scribes, the rhythm of observation, recording, and contemplation feels familiar. You notice the way each tablet anchors both moment and memory, a delicate bridge between past and present, mundane and sacred. The quiet of the library encourages your own reflection. You inhale deeply, absorbing the subtle scent of baked clay and faint traces of human activity. The soft light, the gentle organization of the collection, and the slow rhythm of your steps create a meditative environment. You realize that the memory of humanity is not only preserved in these clay tablets, but also carried in the continuity of experience, observation, and storytelling, connecting past generations to your own quiet awareness. Walking slowly among the shelves, you sense the quiet hum of life beyond fields, rivers, families, and labor mingling with reflection. The library becomes a lens into the endurance of human thought, holding presence, care, and contemplation. Each tablet preserves a fragment of life across centuries, inviting gentle meditation. Even in silence, the library of Ashurbanipal whispers, offering a soft, persistent rhythm of memory, as enduring and subtle as wind over ancient fields. Time in the ancient world moved like a gentle breeze through a quiet valley, barely stirring the tall grasses, barely bending the reeds by the riverbank. It was not the abrupt, impatient rush we often feel today, nor the relentless ticking that drives the machinery of modern life. Instead, it flowed slowly, almost leaving traces only in the subtle patterns of nature. The way sunlight lingered longer over a hilltop, how shadows shifted across stone monuments, or the faint, rhythmic pulsing of tides that echoed in the hearts of those who lived close to the sea. In many ancient civilizations, the moon served as a quiet keeper of time. People watched its waxing and waning, using these cycles to mark months and guide agricultural work. The Babylonians tracked days between new moons, creating detailed lunar calendars that influenced farming, religious ceremonies, and civic life. Along the Nile, priests recorded lunar phases alongside Sirius's rise, connecting celestial patterns to the river's floods. Even the Maya in Mesoamerica crafted intricate calendars, combining solar and lunar cycles to structure both daily routines and grand ceremonial events with remarkable precision. What continues to fascinate modern scholars is the remarkable precision of some ancient calendars. even when small discrepancies crept in over time. Occasionally, errors of a day or two would accumulate across lunar months, yet the timing of planting, harvesting, and seasonal festivals remained closely aligned with the natural cycles. This accuracy suggests a deep, attentive understanding of the environment, a way of observing the world that balanced careful record-keeping with intuition and experience. Early communities seemed to sense the subtle signals of the earth, the shifting light, the swell of rivers, the first warmth of spring, and paired these observations with lunar cycles to guide their lives. Their calendars were not rigid instruments but flexible, living tools, capable of accommodating small variations while maintaining harmony with the seasons. It is as if they had learned to move in concert with the earth itself, listening patiently to its quiet whispers and responding with careful, deliberate timing. Time drifted gently, almost invisibly, shaping the lives of those who noticed it and those who did not. Children grew up under its soft current, learning the stories of the stars before ever reading written words. Generations came and went, their faces washed in the same sunlight that had touched their ancestors, their voices merging into a quiet chorus that lingered in the valleys, among the rivers, and within the folds of mountains. And yet, for all its seeming slowness, time carried the weight of change. Empires rose and fell, cities were built and abandoned, and languages blossomed only to fade into silence. Each event was a ripple in the gentle stream, a mark upon the slow-moving fabric of existence. Even in the smallest, most intimate moments, the passage of time revealed itself with a patient grace. A farmer sowing seeds at dawn felt the same rhythm that guided astronomers counting stars at night. A sculptor carving stone could trace centuries of history in the veins of marble, understanding that the stone, like the seasons, responded to forces beyond immediate perception. Time was a teacher that demanded attention, yet punished none for moving too slowly. It was a companion whose presence was felt in the cadence of the wind, the swell of rivers, and the quiet growth of trees. And perhaps, in its soft, unhurried drift, time carries a quiet lesson about both impermanence and continuity. There are moments when past and present seem to touch, intertwining in gentle resonance. A pottery shard half buried in the soil might speak to a modern hand, connecting centuries of human care and craft. The lines etched on an ancient tablet can echo the same questions that arise in minds today, bridging the gap between distant eras. Through these subtle murmurs, time offers a gentle reassurance that even as civilizations fade and names slip into obscurity, the rhythm of life endures. It flows quietly, patiently, without demand or urgency, like a breeze wandering across the plains. At moment, each small echo reminds us that the world continues to nurture, sustain, and whisper its stories, carrying lessons and calm forward for all who pause to notice and reflect. As the narrative of history gradually slows, we find ourselves at the edge of this drifting current, observing without interruption. The sun dips lower, painting the valley in amber and rose. Shadows stretch and mingle, blurring the boundaries between yesterday and tomorrow. In this stillness, the soft drift of time becomes palpable, almost tactile. The world exhales, and the moment seems suspended, delicate as frost on a winter morning dot. As we draw toward closure, there is no sudden finale, no harsh conclusion to jolt the senses. The story of time flows steadily, patiently, in the rise and fall of civilizations, in the quiet glow of the moon, and in the gentle sway of grasses across the valley floor. Each moment whispers that endings need not be abrupt, that departures can be soft, and that every fragment of history, however small, drifts onward, carried gently in the passage of time. The wind sighs softly through ancient hills, threading through stones worn by countless seasons. Rivers murmur secrets to the rocks along their banks, each ripple a note in the quiet symphony of existence. Shadows lengthen gradually, and the fading light bends across the land with measured grace. Time moves, but it moves as a companion, patient and deliberate. Never tyrannical, dot every trace of the pasta. Impressions of hands in clay, the faint outline of a long-forgotten path. The quiet hum of life remains with us, lingering in the rhythm of the world. If we pause, if we truly listen, we feel continuity, calm, and the gentle comfort of being part of an unending, slow-moving story. Beneath the quiet plains of Mesopotamia, the earth holds its stories in layers, like pages of a vast, unending book. Each stratum of soil is a chapter, preserving fragments of lives that flickered briefly, yet left traces that endure far longer than memory alone. In the sun-baked lands between the Tigris and Euphrates, layers of sediment accumulate slowly, mingling with the dust of abandoned settlements, fallen pottery, crumbled bricks, and the faint impressions of footsteps long vanished. Every handful of earth speaks of the passage of generations, of hands that shaped mud into dwellings, of children who ran barefoot across open courtyards, of fires lit for warmth and ritual. Archaeologists, patient and meticulous, have peeled back these layers, revealing astonishing continuity and change. In one site, the foundations of a mud brick house may rest atop an earlier structure, whose own bricks bear marks of older, forgotten lives. Beneath them, the remains of granaries, temples, and marketplaces form a palimpsest of human activity, each layer echoing the rhythms of daily life. The sowing of crops, the celebration of festivals, the solemnity of burials. Through careful excavation, scholars have reconstructed sequences of occupations spanning millennia, confirming that cultures rose and fell, yet often remained tethered to the same fertile plains, drawn by water, soil, and the promise of continuity. What is particularly striking in some Mesopotamian sites is the presence of a thin, mysterious layer of burnt soil, faint as ashes but persistent enough to be detectable even after thousands of years. Its origin is still uncertain. Was it a fire of domestic accident, a ritual conflagration, or the remnant of conflict lost to history? The layer sits quietly among the heavier sediments of mud and clay, a subtle reminder that beneath the familiar patterns of human life, there are events that resist explanation, leaving only whispers for modern eyes to interpret. It feels as though the earth holds memories in subtle, mysterious ways, revealing glimpses of understanding while keeping its secrets, offering clarity and enigma together in a single, quiet breath. Walking through these ancient ruins today, one can almost sense the weight of countless generations pressing softly from below. The impressions of footprints, though faint, persist like shadows, connecting the present with the distant past. In some corners, the grooves of a wheel pressed into clay thousands of years ago remain visible. In others, the fragments of ceramic bowls suggest meals once shared, hands once guided, voices once heard. The material traces are humble, often fragile, yet they testify to continuity in human endeavor. To build, to cultivate, to create meaning in a world that, for each generation, is both familiar and fleeting. Time here is layered, not linear. The world above may change, rivers shift course, civilizations collapse, empires rise and fade, but beneath the surface, the footprints of human life endure. The soil, sun-baked and sometimes scorched, cradles memory in a way that defies the erosion of centuries. Each excavation, each careful brushstroke, removing dust from a shard or bone, is a small act of communion with the past, a chance to hear echoes of voices that no longer speak. In the quiet, one might almost imagine the laughter of children, the murmur of conversation, the gentle footfalls of ancestors moving across the land. Yet these traces are not always clear, not always whole. Some layers resist interpretation, some artifacts remain ambiguous, some fires leave only a whisper of their passage. And perhaps that is part of the profound beauty of archaeology. It does not promise full understanding, only glimpses, fragments, and suggestions. It reminds us that history is both tangible and elusive, a record written in clay and ash, in the subtle differences between one stratum and the next, in the faint outlines of human endeavor pressed into the enduring earth. As the sun dips low over the Mesopotamian plains, shadows stretch across the dig sites, softening the sharp lines of broken walls and scattered pottery. The air carries the warmth of millennia, and the gentle wind seems to murmur across the layers, as if reading the silent stories buried beneath. Here, at the edge of the ancient past, The present feels unusually tender, aware of its own fleetingness while cradling the permanence of memory in the soil beneath. The earth's stratigraphy, its quiet testimony, offers a sense of continuity, that though individual lives are brief, and though civilizations may vanish, their footprints remain small and persistent beneath the ages. And so, as we move toward the final hush of this narrative, the footprints beneath the ages guide us gently. They remind us of the patience of time, of the delicate persistence of human life, and of the soft dialogue between past and present. There is no sudden closure here, no abrupt end to the story, but a quiet settling, a gentle drifting into calm. The earth exhales slowly. The wind whispers among the ruins, and the traces of generations, both mysterious and familiar, settle into a serene repose. In this calm, the mind can rest. The voices of the past grow faint, the outlines of ancient cities blur into the horizon, and the layers of soil, ash, and memory merge into a soft, sustaining quiet. Here, beneath the ages, one can drift asleep with the sense that though individual lives fade, the continuity of humanity endures. The footprints are still there, beneath the soil, beneath the stars, beneath the gentle unfolding of time. In their gentle, enduring presence, the fields and stories offer a lullaby for anyone who pauses to listen. A soft rhythm hums quietly through the grasses, the stones, and the lingering warmth of the earth, carrying a sense of calm and continuity. This subtle cadence guides the mind and spirit toward the final peace of night, wrapping the world in quiet comfort in a slow, untroubled graze. The late afternoon sun bathed the ancient fields in a warm, golden glow, turning long grasses into waves of amber and honey. Shadows stretched lazily from crumbled stone foundations and remnants of old walls, draping gently over the rolling plains once traversed by countless generations. The air was still, yet filled with faint whispers, subtle echoes of lives long past. History seemed to drift slowly here, almost imperceptibly, like a soft morning mist rolling over the land. Every detail, the light, the earth, the gentle sway of grass invited quiet reflection, a calm connection to the passage of time across these ancient fields. Amid these fields, the story of Cain and Abel, one of the earliest narratives of human conflict, seemed to dissolve into the earth itself, their tale, immortalized in countless manuscripts and oral traditions, now lingered like a thin haze, blending seamlessly with the dust of time. Every furrowed patch of soil, every worn path, felt as if it had once borne witness to their footsteps, their struggles, and their fleeting joys. Here, the ancient tale was no longer sharp or defined, it was a gentle memory, an echo caught between the whispers of wind and the sway of the wheat. Through the centuries, this story had traveled across cultures, recorded in texts that sometimes agreed, often diverged, and occasionally contradicted one another. Some manuscripts spoke of jealousy and sorrow with stark clarity. Others rendered the events with subtle ambiguity, leaving details to imagination. Scholars, tracing the narrative across time, noticed how different communities emphasized different aspects. Some focused on moral lessons, others on human frailty, and still others on the enigmatic presence of divine observation. Each version was a reflection not only of the story itself, but of the hands and minds that preserved it, a mosaic of memory that both illuminated and obscured its origins. As the sun sank lower, the horizon softened into shades of rose and violet, merging sky and earth in a gentle haze. The wind carried the faint scent of soil and dry grasses, mingled with the faint, lingering smoke of ancient hearths. In this quiet hour, the fields seemed alive with a subtle, patient presence echoes of generations who had tilled the land, sown seeds, celebrated harvests, and mourned losses. Each breath of wind, each shifting shadow, was a gentle reminder that time itself is a soft, flowing rhythm, one that does not hurry, does not judge, and does not forget. Even as the story of Cain and Abel faded into legend, its essence remained intertwined with the landscape. In some corners of these plains, stones marked boundaries, long forgotten, remnants of settlements built and abandoned, the traces of fire, of ritual, of daily labor, were subtle yet enduring, a silent testimony to lives that once moved across the same fields. The story, like the land, was layered, a convergence of memory, myth, and history, softly receding into the twilight, yet never entirely gone. The light continued to shift, spilling long streaks across the plains, highlighting patches of ancient clay, worn bricks, and fragments of pottery. Each object was a fragment of human existence, a delicate imprint left on the soil, awaiting rediscovery. The narrative of old Dove brothers, choices, and consequences settled into these layers, becoming part of the fabric of the land. And in that settling, there was a gentle reassurance that even stories of sorrow and conflict, when absorbed by time, transform into quiet echoes, tender and contemplative, carrying lessons without burden, resonating softly with anyone willing to pause and listen. As the evening deepened, the fields were bathed in a serene, silvery light. Shadows merged, boundaries softened, and the plains seemed to breathe with a rhythm slower than any human pulse. The past and present coexisted in this delicate space, a silent conversation of generations. Here, the narrative of Cain and Abel, like the wind across the grass, drifted away into memory, leaving only a sense of continuity, of gentle observation, and of a world at peace with its own unfolding. The twilight over the ancient fields brought a soft hush, drawing the land into a quiet slumber. The remnants of walls, the scattered stones, the faint impressions of footsteps all seemed to fold gently into the earth, as if the world itself were exhaling. Shadows lengthened, merging with the soft contours of the land, and the air carried a stillness that invited reflection and rest. Time slowed, not abruptly, but with a graceful ease, as if pausing to allow the observer to sink fully into the calm of the moment. The stories, histories, and footprints of long-vanished generations rest lightly in the soil, like a delicate lullaby. Even the tale of Cain and Abel, once marked by attention, softens into a misty memory, a quiet reflection of human fragility and the enduring persistence of life. Each layer of narrative, each fragment of text or artifact, becomes part of the evening's gentle rhythm, moving in harmony with the wind, the earth, and the fading light. You sense the continuity of human presence across time, how lives long past still leave subtle impressions. In this serene space, history feels alive yet peaceful, its weight softened, blending naturally into the calm, measured pulse of the world around you. Asterisk, and now, as the last glow of day recedes, it is time to drift with it. May the soft cadence of history and memory lull the mind, slow the heartbeat, and carry the listener gently into sleep. Let the stories rest, let the shadows embrace, and let the quiet of the ancient fields enfold you. Sleep peacefully, cradled by the continuity of time, and wake renewed, ready to journey once more when the night calls again. Good night, and until tomorrow's whisper of adventure, let the dreams be soft, to rest deep and the heart at ease.